Welcome everyone to another episode of Conversations That Matter. Today with me for you is excellent guest, leadership coach, Dr. Blaz Florjanic, with whom I will be talking around the leadership, executive team, organization, and the whole complex ecosystem that we all are part of. Dr. Blaz, welcome and thank you very much for being here with us.
Hi to everybody, and thank you for inviting me.
Before we jumped into that official part of the conversation, we were talking about blooming and evolving business of writing books. Since we are with that mind or thought in mind, books, I don't know how about you, but I'm a bit old school, and whenever I am going into the work around the leadership, I'm diving in those old books, like 90s, maybe early 2000, but not the new one. Do you have your favorite book to which you go when you are in need of, I don't know, inspiration around your work?
Yes, since I cover many different areas, but for the purposes of leadership, I usually refer to the book that actually touched me to step on this path. Is a book from Marshall Goldsmith. It's called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." Actually brings you an awareness that even when we feel comfortable of reaching certain level in life, we actually got here based on our previous mindset, on our mind patterns, and actually invites us to rethink them if they are actually also valuable for our next step. So that would be my go-to book usually. Although in the past I read a lot of books, but in recent years, since there's a lot of commuting and everything, I usually listen to books. So that's and then also by that then I re-listen them several times. But if I come back to your question, "What Got You Here Won't Get You There" is one of the great books, which is simple in model, what it tries to say, but then it is hard for us when we want to implement the changes.
I never heard about that book.
Yeah, Marshall Goldsmith is a very well-known expert, coach, scientist, also in HR. So if you are American origin and Marshall Goldsmith doesn't ring a bell, then usually they ask you, so in which areas did you move? So yeah, he's a very famous in the United States. Also, there is whole methodology based on his model about that actually invites stakeholders in the coaching process. And this is automatically then some people call it systemic approach. Systemic is quite popular word in coaching, which sometimes shows that people use nice words without actually understanding them, because immediately when you define what your system of observation is, if that is individual, so then you are in the system psychology, so you cannot avoid the systemic approach. So if you look at the teams, then you're in the systemic environment of teams or organization or society or world. So in coaching, you are always systemic, if you emphasize it or not. Just depends from which field are you actually approaching your client or clients.
Systemic approach, for the first time, I have met that term when I met last year. I was hosting Leadership for Mental Health event, and one of our guests, Danica Souza, she's systematic coach transformation. I am really not familiar, so I will not play smart here, but it was the first time I heard the term. And since then, maybe I heard that before, but I didn't really receive it because It's something I didn't read about. But after it, and even social media, I see quite a lot. Life coaches are referring to these kind of systemic approaches.
Mm. Yeah,
I need to dive into it.
definitely. I would invite you to. But everything actually comes out of the theory of systems, and people usually do not even refer to it because even when they know the term systemic, they
Mm.
don't know a lot about theory of systems. So you cannot avoid one without another. And yeah, I invite you to look into it, and then if you will dig deep enough, you will understand that whenever you approach a client or somebody or a team or organization, you cannot be unsystemic. You are either, you can only be fully aware of systemic approach, which means that you are actually also tackling external influences, or you are not. This is just the difference. But
But right now, even when I'm listening to you, because before about systemic, it was more, you know, addressing individuals to realign themselves within themselves and so on. Find your new truth. Here you are talking about this systemic approach within the concept of leadership, organization, and
mm,
team management. When this term systemic approach within team management appeared the market, is this something old?
no, this came with this actually resurfaced with team coaching because it wants to emphasize that team is not some isolated island that has only internal chemical dynamics, but actually the dynamics is also outside the team. So if you look at the team, systemic approach would be what's outside the team. If you look at the person, systemic approach would be what's outside of the person. If you look at the person's mind, the outside
Okay.
perspective would be what's outside the mind, what's in the body. So the systemic is unavoidable, as like you would be saying that there is a blue sky. Of course it's a blue sky, usually it is a
Mm,
blue sky if there's
yeah.
nothing hiding it. So it's, yeah, uh, it's more of a popular world that brings the awareness that is something beyond what you're actually, or you should always look at the broader spectrum, whatever it is, your
Mm.
system of observation. That's the message. And yeah, psychology has its own system. So psychology has its own system, and then other, let's call it sciences or approaches have theirs. So it's many answers for the same word, as you said it yourself.
As you have mentioned, that we are creating the new terms. I am not a fan of these continuously newly created terms because we have it all. And I have impression that we are only every few years someone will pop up with a new word, and then we are promoting that, we are adding to it some concept, maybe not new, reinventing what has been already done before. And one of these kind of books that even I believe really nicely falling into our conversation about this thing is The Fish Rots from the Head. And it says very strongly, I mean, directs us what kind of value of the executive team is having on shaping the tone of the culture in the organization. We have so much literature how the executive leaders, executive team are responsible for shaping the culture, are responsible for creating the dynamics and value within the management, the processes. And then we are having the fish rots from the head. What kind of qualities do you see from your own experience, your own work? Qualities in executive leaders that eventually successfully shape healthy culture.
Yeah. The perspective that book gives, it's actually, it depends on which chair are you sitting on. It brings a good, if you are a leader, it brings you a reflective opportunity. So to really see where you are with your integrity, self-awareness, courage. So how do you bring that to everyday life? But if you are sitting on the other side, so if you are somebody who's looking towards leadership, formal or informal, it actually provides you a great excuse to be in a victim mode,
Mm,
Because at the end you say, okay, the fish rots from the head, but at the end it can start rotting whatever it is, because it's a biological body, as it is every organization. It de-empowers you. Yeah, definitely leadership has the greatest power to be like we look up to our, let's call them early leaders that we look to. They're our parents usually. They also are bringing us certain values, their awareness, their courage, and we look up to them and we try
mm.
to actually model their behaviors. And there is a great power in that, And I believe that if you are in a position of not being a formal leader, you should not take these words too literally,
Mm.
it should empower you to actually move also by yourself, not to say, okay, if the fish takes the head, so if leadership has not provided us certain frames, certain, I don't know, if the leader is behaving like A, B, C, and D, uh, it's not an excuse for you to follow that path or follow that road, that would be my message.
We love this opportunity or possibility to choose that label. We are victim of our organization because our leaders are bad. I mean, not me personally, and I am with you on that. If you are not informal leader or even formal leader, and when the higher decisions are made or not made, playing the victim is not the right choice.
Sure.
Versus to take the responsibility, accountability, not for the team, at least for your own role that you are playing within the organization.
Yeah, that actually follows follows the level of our adult mind development. So the model that was kind of described by Kagan. So when we are more in a victim mode, we are reactive. So we do not take the initiative. We are not creative. So it takes an effort to move our mind from reactive to creative and to be there as much as possible. I know that we shift between creative and reactive mind.
Mm.
Or we can also reach higher levels of mind, but this is usually not promoted by all the products that we can meet on the shelves. But
Yes.
yeah, because leaders are in the same position, uh, so they're also part of some team, of a leadership team, and there's a leader, and that leader is also part of a leadership team that somebody else is leader. So there are always stakeholders that shape you through their expectations. And yeah, it's also connected where we as for, but each individual wants to position himself from the perspective of his mind development. So putting in more effort in everyday life and being creative, or being in a reactive mode when you do not have to put so much energy besides being reactive and just following what the script has already written.
Ah, that's so true. And especially this being a reactive leader is a great because we can notice when we are reacting and when we are responding to situation. Mm, and we have this capability to push on brake, but somehow um, we are choosing this emotional drive rather than rational. And this is when we are shaping the culture, we are coming to the team. And I personally have experienced so many non-clarity environments in terms of building the culture within the project. Culture. What does it mean, culture? It can mean anything. It can be behavior, a style of work, way of communication, and so on and so on. Building, shaping the culture is most of the situation, and even the statistics are showing, is not visible. We are driven by the emotions. We become the CEO, we are having a board of directors. Let's talk about the strategy, but we are not talking about the components.
Usually strategy is connected to mission and vision of the company, and we try to there connect the dots regarding what will be also then value for our user, customer, for somebody that will take the product. I think that underlying word, if I would have to choose one word when somebody is actually tackling the culture and the strategy, would be congruence. But strategy is more analytical thing. So you have the inputs, analysis, you do the strategy. But when you talk about the culture, then you have something that you write down and you say, this is something I can commit to. So it's not something that I would like to have. It's something that I can own and I can deliver. So it's more important than have there a shiny words that I can never deliver and it's not congruent with anything. So there are no values, beliefs, words, or actions supporting that. Better to have only one or two things that I can really commit to, and then the organization or the some people that are following will say, okay, this leader committed to, we are committed to, we can follow that and we can deliver that. Our actions, our values, beliefs are a one whole. So yeah, strategies is totally different animal. So there you have a methodology that is less. You can totally switch off your emotional body and you can be only in analytical mind and everything is structured. So inputs, outputs, forecasts, projections, and you just need to sharpen that in a communication package and poof, off you go.
The strategy definitely it's important, but it's also coming back to what you have said at the beginning. People are using terms without knowing its meaning. I have seen so many teams using word strategy, working around the strategy without really having the conceptual knowledge around its meaning and purpose within the organization. We speak about the culture, and you are saying about the strategy and its input output purpose, let's say. What kind of practices you have seen where the leadership team has introduced to create the healthy culture within the organization? Have you seen?
I've seen, yeah, sure, I've seen different approaches, but I don't know where to start because it also looks like it evolves from, because somewhere along the way, leadership uh, actually came across a model of Deal's pyramid, you know. And then by using that pyramid, now and there are different concepts of understanding what the higher leadership teams look into. So sometimes they try to tackle behaviors, sometimes they try to tackle values. Most common approach is actually to go with the values and identity. So that's why that standard script, the old school approach. So mission, vision, and then going back to culture and strategy. So and that's which enable at the end of the day that reflects in behaviors, you know. But there's a saying, you know, if you change the environment, people will follow. So if you want a shortcut, so if you want to cut through all that endless discussion about what are our values, and in the end it's 20 instead of 5. What is our North Star approach, and left and right? You just change the environment, your working environment, and people will adopt to that setup. There is no other way than to work in that setup. You either work in new setup or you
Yes.
actually abandon that setup. So that's basically, uh, and these are also the different approaches that that organizations take. So the bold ones usually go from the bottom of Tilt's pyramid when there is an environment and preconditions of the also people culture is there present. So, but more or less, so general. So and if you want to be quick and bold, you usually change the environment, the setup in which people work, or when they meet, where they generate their ideas. If you want to take a longer way, you go from top. So you tackle identity, you tackle values, and you walk down to the behaviors. My personal opinion is that you have to work in parallel. So you attack all levels at the same time, and they are connected, so they are not disconnected. So, for example, if you say that the trust is something that you actually really want to have in your teams, and at the end you do not disclose all the informations, that does not fit. You have to meet both ends. So you have there the values, you have there the behaviors, you have the environment, and you also know how to communicate all that. So these are the different approaches that I've seen, but this was explained through the model of Tilt's pyramid.
And somehow it confirms when we speak about the culture in the organization, we need to remember that there are different dimensions, and for each dimension, however we want to approach to build a culture, will require also different mindset, different exercises, how we want to engage the environment. Because if we want to change or create a culture, behavioral culture, most probably the tools will be a bit different than for the culture of, I don't know, team management. So certain processes can be also under the umbrella of the culture, the way how we are performing in the organization.
Methods and approaches are replicable, so you can use it regardless of the level or of the environment we are. So here we can we can touch the systemic approach. So it is the environment that is connected to that team organization actually then has a different fine tuning. For example, when you collect inputs, in some culture it is better to do it in person. You sit down with top management, you collect feedbacks. In others, it's better to have a anonymous survey. So that's but it's the same. It's analysis phase. So it's just different approach. What I wanted to say, perhaps, or to emphasize that I was not emphasizing before, a major difference is when you have engaged leadership or you do not have engaged leadership, if you are now sticking to the cultural change. Now, one thing, so let me explain that. So if I have an organization where leadership is actually actively doing the cultural change with boss of all bosses sitting at the table and shaping also his minds and thoughts and his reflections on the organization, there is much higher success rate for the culture to change. So what is the alternative solution? And that's more of a spitting into my bowl. So it's like when you get a top management to prepare a project, so you productivize the culture change, and then you use it as a plugin. So somebody else is preparing you the booklets, the everything, or just templates, and then you say, okay, I will just use this, copy it, prepare me a skeleton, and then I will implement that. So that's usually something that is more like just reading somebody else's script, and that much more lowers the success rate in doing the cultural changes. So it's important to co-create from the top management down, because this is also modeling. So now we are coming back to the book, The Fish Rots from the Head. It could be also stated that that model leaders, or leaders are the people that are persons that others are look up to. It is important statement and also behavior that others can look up to when the top management is actually creating that stuff that is called culture.
I just want to circle here around, because definitely we all need, even we as being leaders, we want to look up to another leader. At the same time, we are in the position the world think we don't need attention. We want to have attention. We don't receive it because we are leaders, so we are self-efficient, right? But earlier you have mentioned about when you are creating environmental change, others will follow. But here is kind of also the risk, because we are having this decision-making principle. What is my intention that I want to implement a certain change? And how usually in practice it is happening. I make a decision. This decision is supported by the new policy. Policy is issued. You are receiving a digital notification. Please sign the policy acknowledgement in the system. And this is how, in a systemic manner, the change is exposed to the community within the organization and officially implemented.
Without tackling emotional body of a person.
Why should I
But
ask you? Why should I ask you how you feel about that change? We
that's not
decided with big bosses at the table, you need to sign off.
sure, but that's not a change of an environment. You are just issuing yet another, in the same environment, you are just issuing another piece of digital information. So you're not changing the environment,
Exactly.
actually. So that's using the same tool with a different, with something different written in, you know.
It sounds, for me, it's very familiar to the authoritarian, autocratic style of management within the organization. Because when we are talking about the culture, we engage in the dialogue, everyone, right? But somehow in 21st century, we do have this kind of behavioral standards that the decisions are happening at the big tables. Not rare, we do not have full picture what is happening on the lower levels and how eventually change will affect teams, employees as individuals. Is it efficient? Is it effective? Is it a good decision? We don't do that. We are sitting with, again, big people at the table, and we are making this decision somehow fueled by the power of title. John Cotter. He made a wonderful book. This is not how we do it here. We are talking about the change, do it that differently, but we are not open to the dialogue.
Yeah, you started with autocratic leadership, and then you came to the change. Let me first clarify the autocratic leadership, and then I'll come to change. There is nothing wrong with autocratic leadership until it is used in not too much. So that's the message. So today's leaders do not have the luxury to possess only one leadership style. So and this is usually the HR topic during the recruitment. What's your leadership style? So usually that's not one one suit that they're using every day. There are multiple, so we can also then deep dive a little bit more in emotional intelligence and leadership styles that are there promoted and so on. But there are situations when you need actually autocratic leadership. You need a quick decision. If you have a fire in companies or in the where, you need to directly say to the people, leave the premises, you know.
Yes.
But yes, much more effective everyday leadership consists of coaching leadership style, actually consulting, aligning, and mainly the underlying thing is involving stakeholders and then communicating with them and aligning based on that change. And I think that Kotter was like a, like a cartoon. When you go and you watch cartoon, the same manner he wrote that book. So it's a little, when you go to with your child to the movies and you look, or at the front of the television, you look at the cartoon, usually there are multiple layers of story. So also for the adult viewers, there is a deeper story behind. So if I look at the John Cotter's messages that he tried to put there, which are many, and I'm not an expert on this book, but at least two things or three things that are very important is that there is no management without leadership and leadership without management. So they can be separate by the definition, but they have to coexist in order to make a organization successful, whatever organization is. It can also be a marriage, which is also a contractual organization. So, and putting that into putting that in words and showing that there is a coexistence of that and one without another cannot successfully, it's an important message that is coming from this book. And it also shows how to do that. But even more important is that he defines the 8 steps that are like a blueprint or a map, how to come from the initial idea when everybody thinks that they will save the world, that organization with, I don't know, it could be 5 or could be 5,000 or 50,000 employees, they will change it. So actually to bring you from that initial idea of changing something and having the need to change all the way to implement that daily. And actually, it's a process that has the biggest challenges at the beginning and at the end. And yeah, I think it's also, I fully agree with you. It's a great book that provides you with self-reflection. So it invites you to think about how to tackle change from perspective of using duality. So people often say that, oh, management is bad, it's just task, task, task. So leadership is great. We are actually looking for people. We are looking inside ourselves. The organization is all great. So we have a greater purpose. It's holistic, it's everything. But if you want to have things done, at the end, somebody has to manage them. And that's really a great perspective coming from John Cotter.
The qualities from leadership I would recognize as a part of management processes within the communication. Because when you are bringing the change, you need to have some structure, how you do it, right? Within the book, what really, I don't know, was a sparkle for me is a mindset of people. How the first pushback when, let's say, the other younger generation is telling the elders, this is how we should go do this and use these tools. No, 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 the elders said, more experience, we know how to do it, and this is how we will do it because we have more experience. So we can bring the processes, but too often we are forgetting about the mindset and what kind of conceptual knowledge we are having. when we talk about the change.
Sure, but this is definitely a resistance to change, which is our, we don't even have to model other people to have that. So that is actually coming from the nature. Nature is always tending to be its lowest potential. The same is resistance to change, you know. You're actually, have to put an effort to change. So it's our mindset shift. So it does not come when we observe nature around us, it doesn't come natural to do that, you know. So it brings an effort. And yes, these are stereotypes, and it's a common let's call it the first line of attack when somebody brings change in whatever situation, business or otherwise.
In general, the conversation about the leadership cannot be one-lined. It will be always somewhere intersection within various subjects that are appearing within the conversation. And as we brought the autocratic leadership to the conversation, yes, definitely, I would slash it with situational leadership, yes, one of the also earliest theories. When there is the urgency, we need to step up and make a decision without democratic conversation, right? So this is kind of element as well of autocratic behavior. And considering the way how today we are approaching the change, that again, most of the times we are doing this through the policy, it reminds me this autocratic, again, slash using power of title because I can. I see the new concept. We are bringing that in this way because the dialogue with the people will be too much troublemaking. So as we are having this concept within the Kotter's book, is that they have been in danger, how many organizations are in danger, but no one is talking to the people for the solution. So the resistance. Why leaders are afraid to talk with employees when there is a risky situation and change is needed?
So is this connected to risky situation and change, or they're two different? Because a risky situation is one thing, and so are we connecting these two in the question?
Okay, so to the situation where the change is needed.
Okay, but if
Let's
the change
delete
is,
the risky.
yeah, so if the change is small, so it's on an individual level, then you do not need a Kotter's model of in 8 steps. So then you actually are thinking about more about what are your communication models that you can use when tackling a hard conversation. If that's when we're talking, but when we're talking from the perspective, so one thing for the leaders is that it's quite often that they don't do big major changes every day. Although the new paradigm is change is the only constant. Of course, it is change is the everyday constant. It always was. Just on a micro level, there was always something to handle. So world is change was and is and will change until it exists. So but we just kind of embrace the fact that everything is changing. And so the first thing is understanding when a Kotter's model is applicable. There are other models that are also applicable for organizational change. Also, it depends which layer are you trying to tackle. So, because different experts sometimes try to tackle major organizational changes from the personal perspective. For example, they use outcome model, which actually comes at the end when you know what you will change. So when you do your leadership part and you're then in your management part, so you know where, you just have to execute then how. And so the challenge here, that's why also then managers slash leaders, they usually try and pull in the external partners who has walked this path many times. So when we are talking about the change, which is usually organizational change, cultural change, then you use Kotter's model. That's why usually here is that factor of fear. That they are not either trained or they have lack of experience, and they simply do not know how to tackle that. Again, having a yet another experiment that might fail. Because if you bring in an external, let's call it a consultant or coach or mentor, then you either will win or you will have a great excuse why you cannot, you didn't, why you failed.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes, so the consultant told me to do it like that.
Hmm, that's a great idea too. Keep yourself safe from the accountability.
Sure. The
Yeah.
fact is, if you are bringing in the consultant, or especially now we're going a little bit moving away from, let's call it organizational change, let's call it more business developments or changes where there are major players, bigger corporations. Consulting corporations usually try to model something that others are also doing and are successful in what they do. So it's hardly to actually be there different, to step out of the general population, because you will do the same way as company A, B, C, and D is doing. You're just an F company that is copying the same model. You know, it might provide you a proper solution to be in parallel to that A, B, C, and D, but it usually does not bring you that additional step to move before them. So yeah, consultants are good scapegoats, at the end as well, in some cases.
I could debate
Sure.
about that, but what just took my attention, about when you were talking about the resistance and why eventually leaders are avoiding certain engagement because of the fear. Yes, that, oh, I'm not educated, we didn't do it, there is a risk of failure, and so on and so on. And what came to my mind, I was recently working on something, and I had to dive into statistics. And 366 or 466 hundreds billions globally. Okay, I might be wrong by 100, but still hundreds billions a year globally is spent for the leadership development. So I am a bit cautious when I'm hearing these kind of justifications, because with that investment, honestly, it's hard to believe that the leaders who are already working in the organization may have some gaps.
Sure, they have gaps. If they don't have gaps, then they can go to um, a next reincarnation cycle. As
Okay.
long as we live, we learn. And I think that actually, as you grow as a leader, you
Mm,
also change people that are your mentors, coaches, advisors, because you're actually then grasping to new dimensions. Even the great minds that are that were really have stunned us in the past. At the end, they usually from this. I'm not talking from the science perspective.
mm-hmm,
They usually all ended up discussing about philosophy, because in science, in their rational mind, they could not explain or comprehend the life that they were living, from different perspectives. And the same goes for the leaders. So if they are committed to always evolving as a human being, and that commitment is kind of a predominant to stay in the game, then they always have a next level to reach, you know, because the adult mind also does not stop with being creative, you know. There is much more holistic next level. So also great model is coming from Leadership Circle. This just also uh, giving some advertise for the competition. So, but they have a really great model, also book supported, how to actually
You
move
should charge
with
him.
people. Yeah, how
We
to
will send
move
the
through,
official letter. We are
yeah,
charging for that.
yeah, how to move through different levels of leadership. Actually, if you look at the level where, for example, Dalai Lama is, and that is also a level of leadership, and the
Mm-hmm.
influence at the end, some people would say he does not have an influence. Yes, formal, no, but where is his informal influence? Looking on the global level. So there are many levels that even top managers can go if they're interested beyond their rational thinking. So yeah, I think that's the money spent is even, let's call it, not so much such a big
For me, the
budget.
amount was shocking.
Sure.
And versus the statistics, I don't know if you have seen a recent report from Gallup. They reached employee disengagement 79%.
Yeah.
So for me, the amount spent is huge, and the statistics are showing the numbers are quite low in very significant areas. I do not expect leaders from the top or even from any level to know everything. No, no. But with access to development and being within certain level within the organizational structure, I actually expect from that person to have a courage to take the shot, for the, okay, let's sit and talk about the change. And here, the resistance, the fear, may be the leading factor why organizations are hiring the external support. And here we are coming to next question. Does engagement of external support consultants is really supporting organizations or bringing another process of management?
You are definitely connecting the previous question with this one because so you brought up uh, earlier the resistance to change. So we all have resistance to change, you know.
Mm,
So even changing the toothbrush in the morning, so it's a resistance to change because we've done it for last, I don't know, X 10 years. So everybody has that tendency. So also leaders have. So it's a mindset shift, and that's why. And the other thing is where all that money for leadership development is going. So again, to all paradigms, you know,
mm-hmm.
if there we have a competence matrix, for example, if somebody has it, or looking from the wider organization space, and they check what is the competence matrix gap. So how do you cover that? The simplest way is you sign up the training and off you go. So to stay just a few seconds still there. So there is an interesting thing, an explanation coming from Jeffrey Pfeffer about there is a difference between learning and knowing, you know? And a lot of people know things, especially in this age of data availability. If they know, they can search it.
Mm.
But there is a huge gap between knowing and doing, you know, and that's usually that. So, and then even what you have learned in that training program that you were assigned, in X days you forgot everything. So usually, very popular word for that is it's a edu training. So infotainment program, you know. You
Mm.
get an information and you're entertained. So, and that is also a model that training, let's call it, organizations use. Why? Because if at the end you are entertaining your guests, your leaders, you get a good reviews. and based on that,
Mm.
you get a new orders, and that's self-sustained model. So no hard topics, no hard trainings. Let us entertain you. So there will be a light.
They will like us.
Yeah, sure. There will be.
They will like us. They will love us.
We will not stretch you, and that's it. So the model of how we do change is actually supporting that resistance to change. And now to come back to your question, sorry for this detour, but let me come back to your question. What is helpful with external organization? There are several aspects why that is needed, because often external consultants, even if they are seen as an assurance to do it in a manner that was proven in other organizations. So you bring there an experience and a proven track record. So that's something that organization that wants to do the change that is kind of similar to other organizations, they do not have to they do not have to fall in all the traps that somebody else already done. Usually external support or consultants also bring the proven models and frameworks. So that is, you get a structured approach, you know how to do it. If you listen to it, you can comprehend it, and you can walk the path. Oh, absolutely, there are ingredients that have to be put in. You have to work on the emotional message of your change, and everything else has to be in that package. But you understand if somebody else is explaining you that has already walked or helped somebody else to walk that path that you're now there trying to do. So then you have that systemic approach. So usually, if you are doing the change, you're just concerned about yourself, and that's the nearest surrounding. If you get an external support or an external coach or a consultant, you get the additional perspective. Usually get an interconnected to either your other subsidiaries, to the top leadership team or leadership teams within the, I don't know, country, organization, in the business field. So then you actually, with the external consultant, you also usually get a neutral observations. It's somebody else that comes to the company and provides you with unburdened opinion. So it functions like a mirror. You get that. It's something that you usually do not see, even because you have blind spots. You have team blind spots, you have personal blind spots, and so. And I would say the last thing is that they usually try to always pull you back on track. So they keep you pace and focus. Because if you do not succeed, usually the external support gets a not very good review, and referrals. So it's in their best interest for you as a client to succeed. So there are multiple reasons why it is important to onboard actually external support. It brings success rate much higher. So at least 2 to 3 times more effective you are.
From your experience, the way how the consultants are entering the organization, how does it work? Are they more engaged with the top management, or they are also sitting and creating the dialogue, the middle line management employees, or even operational employees? Because I believe the operational voice is very crucial in most of the big changes, because on them falls the effect of the decision.
Sure. And there is also the execution. So the models that were adopted from other environments like lean, agile, and so on, I think that there are different approaches based on the consultants and I've been on both sides. So on the receiving and on the giving end. But what I observed lately is mainly Kotter, even if it's not spoken out, consultants, when they enter in their back of their minds, they have Kotter's model. So one way or another, they use that 8 steps or they combine them, but somehow, because it's also very logical, if you go and it's why also they use Kotter, because it is language that is understandable, because it's transactional.
Yes.
And that's why this is also a downside of Kotler's model, because it tends, if it's not upgraded to a transformational level. So when you actually do not say, if you do that, you will get that. So if you actually address also, if you go deeper in the culture, because Kotter is very explicit when you do, I don't know, reorganizations, when you try to make leaner processes and so on. That there is very super efficient. But you have to put on additional layer where you actually want to be transformative, when you actually tackle the mindset of people, values, tackle it, and you then do also the cultural change. I think that is captured is his steps 7 and 8. So when you do
Is the
repair,
engagement,
yeah, yeah,
communication
yeah.
changes in that field? Yes.
When you repeat that, when you make that a behavior, so you're actually
Mm.
reprogramming your values by reprogramming your behaviors, you observe the proof. So then also your rational mind is actually engaged. It's, oh, this works. If this works, then is actually conclusion that, okay, let's move in that direction forward. Yeah, this is an important aspect to put on top of the rational change, also to put that emotional part, because initially you said we are not, when we talk to people, we are talking on the multiple layers. So our communication is not just words, but are also much more. So it additional connotation is how we actually make people feel, and most important is where we leave them when we finish the conversation. So it's not only important during, but it's actually how we leave, let's call it the room, or how we leave the conversation and what we put into people's pocket or in mind once we are actually not with them anymore. So that's even, I think, even more important.
And especially like when we are talking about indeed holistic, more complex change, where we need to engage more than one team, right? Then consultant can create really good, solid bridges for communication, for planning, for strategies, and so on and so on. And on top of that, create the bridge to build another level of the culture, relationships, collaboration between the departments that are already existing. As we are having the resistance in us, the resistance sometimes can block us as we sit as executive directors at the table. We will quite often we will hold to our own opinion to protect our business, our department. We will hear our colleague who is suggesting the change, but is not necessarily correlated with us. And quite often we are not connected on the higher level as a relationship for collaboration at the executive directors level, and then this culture is going on the lower level. So consultant definitely, if smart, can do the wonderful magic and enhance, empower organization, not only by the change for the specific area, but emotional intelligence to be improved among the stakeholders.
Often, yeah, I fully agree. So the more you actually incorporate through the vertical people to collaborate in defining change, the more effective it is, because that is a definite buy-in. So if I give an input, then I'm also much more advocating for that. So I say, okay, this is also my idea. So and it's crucial what you're stating, to do that from operational level up and to understand it, because at the end, the operational level is actually executing all that ideas, all that business plans and everything. And also they are the ones that are living most with the change, usually that we define across the organization. Or they're affected most, the changes. The higher you are, the more freedom you get in organizational structure to create. I think that and this is also the usually failure point when you discuss about when changes fail. So if you do not have a buy-in, so if you do not build a strong coalition, and that strong coalition needs all the players, even if you just ask them for opinion. So people often just need an opinion, especially if they're usually if their normal mindset is coming from being reactive. They say, "Oh, at least you've asked me, so I have an opinion. I could voice out how do I feel about that." So even if you then rationally explain why some things that were explained can be implemented or not, it brings to the people assurance that you are listening and you are bringing them at the table. So building that coalition is usually one of the crucial things when changes fail in early phase, fail or succeed. So this step together with the steps. So first is building momentum. That is crucial. So to really build it. And there, sometimes from the spark of the idea, we do not get to that coalition. And even more important, so the step that is higher than sustaining. So after getting that first and second and third win, actually to then make a strike. So to always have win-win. So win-win-win. You always know that with this change, you're actually succeeding. I don't know, better times to market, higher people satisfaction, higher engagement, and so on. So that's an important. These are two make or break phases.
The beginnings actually reminds me the typical high-performing team stages, the storming and forming. When they first everybody are sitting to the table and having let's say very kindly brainstorming, right? But we know that this is the moment of conflicts and battles. Ego is a key actor here, and after they are out of breath, then the leader can start forming some shared vision. Yes, but definitely, and this is where for me, when we are having this, like you mentioned, you have an idea and you ask them for their opinion, and when they are reactive to it, means the emotional drive is there, not rational justification of the opinion. I believe there is a very fast sign that maybe on the level of mission and vision, we didn't achieve the common understanding. If we are having already shared purpose, mission, vision, and one of us is bringing the idea, there shall not be the space for this emotional trigger, the resistance, but either leading questions, because I'm safe with you. We are leaders. We have common vision. Our organization, you are a director of operations, I am a director of finance. But quite common is that we will fight with each other like two roosters because we will, I don't know, this is the way how people are performing the resistance, exposure to certain change.
Now we're already in the boardroom, let's call it culture. It depends from organization to organization. And,
Mm.
that is this kind of I think the rooster fights are more and more phased out, you know. The newer generation is bringing different.
Mm.
It does not mean that the fights are there, but they are less open, you know. The oppositions are steered differently, you know. Under stakeholder management, a lot of things can be covered, you know. You actually, that's why this is Kotter's model can, you know, knowledge is always a power because you can use it and it's highly correlated to your own values. You can always use it for manipulation or for the improvement. Also, Kotter's model, if you look at it for the change, if you look, if you want to implement egotistic change that you believe that you will benefit from it and you want to move the organization, you will actually you can take all the steps and you have a good map to succeed. So, and if you try to pull the coalition on your side first and then you communicate, it just depends how you use it. So I think that it's crucial for leaders is to know, to have a knowledge and to have knowledge, which is quite common statement. Let us move away from the theory. Again, this is a mechanism not to put an effort and to learn every day, but that's a basic commitment. And that, yes, the learning comes from daily work, but daily work is an experiment, you know,
Mm.
and you can do the next hypothesis from the one experiment to another because operational work is actually just laboratory is bigger. You just, but you're experimenting. But some theories, it's better if you learn them first and you make a hypothesis and then you test in the laboratory. That's much more effective way because somebody else has tested it before. I think that just these roosters fights have became less more disguised. So this is
Mm.
kind of a cultural shift. We do not want an open fight.
So we are touching the boardroom, we are touching the decision-making process, change management, resistance, behaviors, culture within one umbrella of leadership value, I would rather say. So this is why I love leadership, because it's really non-ending subject. And for me, the conversation that we do have today is important for many to understand the alignment. What is the role of the board of directors? How to play together to one goal, that the knowledge is crucial. And you don't need to, I believe, run it solo. You can do it in collaborative manner with other leaders within your organization. What will be your message to leaders?
Besides committing to learning, I would put it
If
into three
committing to if committing to learning, what they should learn.
this is just one aspect, you know, to understand the matter that they are tackling. And there are several there are multiple dimensions if you are in leadership. And everything starts with the awareness. You know, if we look from the coaching perspective, you know, from not from the organizational development, so it's first understanding yourself, then it is understanding others, either on one-on-one dimension or on team. There is understanding the organization, or understanding the change environment and understanding the whole society. So learning, so commitment to learning, but that's only one of the commitments that are there, is that as a leader, you are in a position that you are open to change yourself, to learn and relearn, to ask more questions that provide answers, to be open to the changing environment. So that's one message. The second message would be, as you stated, this is not a solo game, you know. Even if you thinking about solo, when you're thinking about climbing the ladder, at the end it's all about the team. And first is your direct team, and then it is all the peoples that are entrusted and that trust you. So if you do not understand that this is a people game, or not, we shouldn't take a game, it's a people, it's all about relationships. So leadership is about relationships. I think that you should change the perspective. So that's the second message. And the third message would be congruent, you know. So be aligned between your values, beliefs, words, and actions. So, which means that you have to be first internally aligned. So, you have to get yourself and your life straight, to be externally aligned, which means that you know how to live in this world that you call either your organization or wherever your wider societies that you operate, that you are actually capable of building relational trust so that you're not manipulative. So you build credibility and psychological safety, that people know where you stand. And that you are really resilient under pressure, you know, because under pressure, usually that is the moment when all your good and bad things, all the learnings, all the concepts, whatever you picked up along the way actually starts to emphasize, you know. So you show in all your bad and all the bad programs and good progress that you have in your mind once you're under pressure. So it's better to get all things straight, majority of things straightened up before the hard things hit your organization.
Learning is the amazing fuel for enhancing the conceptual knowledge. And then when you are in a stressful situation, contingent situation, your response is more calm because you are much faster in connecting the dots, strategic thinking, while your emotions are stable. Whereas when your knowledge is standing on a shaky grounds, and it's like you mentioned before, the difference between knowing and doing. I can have my theory, I can have my A from the recent test or thesis, but not necessarily it does make me a great practitioner, right? So, and I have noticed that less knowledge in practice, higher response within the emotional trigger in a negative manner. This is where the resistance appears. This is where the fear. We are stressed automatically. So definitely, Dr. Blush and dear audience, follow the advice from the leadership coach and run straight forward to the bookstore and grab the books. That's a great starting point. We mentioned in our conversation a few books. If you don't remember, watch it again and make a mark what kind of books we are talking about. And especially the messages about keeping learning, growing, evolving. So if you are really going deeper into understanding of the message from today's episode, these are the great pillars to keep you safe from getting insane. Because being in leadership is very risky towards going into burnout, going into depression, going into the detachment, and being mechanically rather than within the systemic open mind approach, as we also spoke about. And I have an exercise for you, dear audience. You want to train your resistance? While I was listening the message of Dr. Blaž, it just came to my mind. I wonder what you think about this. When you listen that video, following day, go to your team and ask them, do you think I am a good leader? That's the first question. The second, ask them, give me 3 why. Make the notes of every response. Go back to your office and read those responses. Do not use the survey. Do not use any automated systems. Just go create the physical connection with the people. And if you have 100 people, just call all together into the meeting room and give the papers to them. It's also physical connection. Go back to your office, read the answer, and ask yourself, are these answers you want to be known for? And that would be my message, my advice for leaders. And the surprise can really, the answers can really challenge the emotional trigger, but definitely train the resistance. Dr. Blaž, thank you very much for this conversation. It was a wonderful talk, and I believe we could continue for much longer. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea. We should come back every year and do the review on the leadership noise, the current century.
Okay. And which is the buzzword of the year?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I am making note. Yes, buzzword of the year. That's the
Are we
good.
still, are we still in the in systemic coaching, or are we already in atomic coaching or something else?
Atomic habits.
That would be also an interesting topic.
Yes. I have the book. I didn't read it yet.
But let me tell you, if there is a message from my side, so definitely lead with clarity, confidence, and impact, and be on the watch to be creative.
Absolutely. Definitely. Thank you very much. And as we say, we see each other next year.
Thank you for the invitation, and bye.